My name is Andy Gibson. I live on Salt Spring Island. I'm a member of the Ometepe Gulf Islands Friendship Association and have been a member of it since its inception. The Ometepe Gulf Islands Friendship Association was formed in the late 1980s to assist the people of Ometepe Island who had had a difficult period previously because of the political unrest and had a severe shortage of many of what we would think is the basics of life. My wife and I made our first trip to Nicaragua in 1985 because we were appalled by what was happening. We went through the aegis of the Tools for Peace campaign, which was endeavoring to assist the Ometepe, the people of Nicaragua. We saw all of Managua. We went out into the hinterland of Nicaragua, and we saw a great deal of what enormous horrible things were being done by Reagan's Contras over in the countryside. The people, we found burned out vehicles. We found, in one case, we found a church that had been vandalized and the congregation killed. We saw all kinds of evidence of their rapacity and their cruelty and their destruction. It became quite a defining moment in our time because we had been moderately, we believed that these Sandinistas were a much more attractive organization than anything else that they have down there, but now we saw what they were up against. We saw terrible scenes of destruction, vandalism, cruelty, it would leave anybody adamant to do to assist the Nicaraguan people. 3 years later, in 1988, we came back, and at this time, the OGIFA had been formed. And we were charged with the responsibility of getting parts for the for the electrical systems and water systems. Ometepe was suffering from the most grievous of misfortunes because it had a functioning hospital, it had a functioning power plant, but the Reagan policy involved stopping them from getting spare parts. For the water system and the electrical system was slowly going out of commission. There was sometimes no water at the hospital. There was some mortality. It was really a deplorable situation that Ometepe was in. For instance, the place where all the cattle had to be watered at the lake, and in many cases that was the only water that was available for people, unless many of the familiar sight on all the roads of Ometepe was children with wagons. So there might possibly be a donkey, but not very often. Almost always it was children with little wagons or people carrying water, and they had to go for miles to get it and come back. And it was obvious that that wasn't in the larger centers, but it was in the smaller ones. And that was a familiar sight on the roads, which kind of broke your heart when you realized that there was water available on Ometepe if only we could get the piping for it, and which we did get. And then an enormous project, which is continuing to this day, is to maintain the water system for Ometepe, because the source of the water is high on the slopes of the the volcano, and it had to be piped down, so that there was a big influx of pipes coming down, and the water and power systems were finally operating as they should. The big problem we had at that time was to get some kind of income going on Ometepe, and the one that naturally was recurred to us was coffee, because the Ometepans had they grew wonderful coffee, but there was next to no people buying it, and they were subjected to the coyotes, I believe they call them, which were coffee purchasers that would go from farm to farm and buy at rock bottom prices the coffee. And yet the coffee was excellent coffee. And I can remember going down across the border to the warehouse and picking up in our little Toyota bags of coffee, which we had imported, and then we took them up to be ground. And then, of course, after that, we began selling it, or many other places, and so the whole thing has been the amount of the money generated by it, with grants that came from Canadian sources, has topped, and I haven't got the exact figure or any figure, but it's just been enormous. And so many organizations have benefited by it. The members of our organization are people in all walks of life, but they have, I believe, a heightened social conscience. That is to say, they get their pleasure. It's a very rewarding thing, because they get their pleasure out of doing efficient, valuable things for their fellow man. It's as simple as that. And but there are many tribulations on the way, and many times the projects that may be initiated don't work out. They simply have to be dropped, or they can even, in extreme circumstances, totally fail. So a great deal of thought has to be lavished on it. One thing that is going for all these organizations is that the people that are running them know exactly what they're doing, and they get their pleasure in life from doing this valuable work, and wouldn't feel complete citizens without doing that.